Good morning, third grade. Today is Thursday, April 23rd, 2020, and our math objective for today is to practice placing various fractions on a number line. So as you watch this video, make sure you have a piece of paper and a pencil. If you don't have that yet, go ahead and pause the video, go get it, and come back when you are ready. First thing, we're going to review our parts of a fraction. So a fraction always has two parts. It has a numerator and a denominator. If I wanted to draw a picture to match this fraction 5/6, I'm going to start with my denominator because it's going to tell me the total number of pieces that I need. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my rectangle. And in this case, I'm going to divide it into 6 pieces because that's what our denominator is. So I'm going to go ahead and break it apart. I'm going to make it as even as I possibly can. Doesn't have to be perfect. And now I'm ready to look at my numerator. In this case, the numerator is 5. The numerator is going to tell us the number of pieces that are being counted. So I'm going to go ahead and count out my 5 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I have a picture that matches the fraction 5/6. The numerator is always on the top and the denominator is always on the bottom. They never switch. Okay, so let's work on practicing some of our skills that we learned about putting fractions on a number line. So take a moment to pause this video and draw this number line. Make sure your number line looks just like this. Your starting point of 0 here, then 1, 2, and then an ending point of 3. Go ahead and pause the video and do that now. Okay, now that we have our number line all ready, it says estimate to mark. That means we're just kind of going to guess and make it as even as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect. And label 1/2 within the whole numbers 0 to 1. So because it says 0 to 1, we're only going to focus on this part of our number line for now. We're not going to worry about the other pieces, just this piece between 0 and 1, the whole number 0 and 1. So then it says 1/2. So half means I need to split it into 2 pieces. 2 pieces. So between 0 and 1, I'm going to break my number line up into 2 pieces. So now that I have 1, 2 pieces, I know that my denominator is 2. So now I'm ready to start labeling my tick marks between 0 and 1. So 0, we know that is going to be 0 halves. Then we're going to continue to count up by 1/2. So 0 halves, 1/2, and 2 halves. And we're going to stop right there because we're only focusing on 0 to 1. So 1 whole is the same as 2 halves. Now it says we need to label 1/2. So I'm going to go ahead and circle on my number line where I see 1/2. Okay, now we're ready to look at the next one. It says estimate to mark 3/2. Label 2 wholes as a fraction. So now, what do we think we're going to break up the rest of our number line into in order to be able to do the next question? Right, we're going to break between the whole number of 1 and 2 in half. And in between the whole number of 2 and 3, we're going to break that one in half as well. Because we learned that no matter what, between any whole number, the denominator is going to stay the same. So now that we know that we're still going to have halves, we're ready to look for 3 halves. Well, we already have 0 halves, 1/2, 2 halves. That means we're ready to continue to count by 1/2. So here we're going to put 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves, and 6 halves, just to finish out our number line. So let's see. It says mark 3 halves and then label 2 wholes as a fraction. Well, on our number line, we've already done that. So we have 3 halves here. And our whole number of 2, because we filled out the rest of our number line, shows us that 2 as a fraction is 4 halves. So 4 halves is the same as 2 wholes. Okay, so now that we've done 2 together, I want you to do the last one on your own. On your paper, I want you to put a star next to 5 halves, and then put a star next to the fractions that shows 3 wholes. So which fraction represents 3 wholes? And then put a star next to both that and 5 halves. Pause this video and come back after you've done that. So on our number line, it should look something like this. If you started right here, this is 5 halves. And then we learned that 3 wholes as a fraction is 6 halves. 6 over 2 is the same as 3 wholes. So we're ready to continue. So this one says, draw a number line with the endpoints 1 and 4. Label the wholes and then partition each whole into thirds. Label all of the fractions from 1 to 4. So go ahead and pause this video and do the first part. So go ahead and draw your number line, and label the endpoints 1 and 4. Okay, so your number line should look something like this. That means you're ready to label the whole numbers. So from 1 to 4, what other whole numbers do we have in between? All right, so now if your number line looks something like this and you labeled the whole numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're on the right track. That means you're ready to partition each of your wholes, so from here to here, from here to here, and from here to here, into thirds. So go ahead and pause the video and partition your number line into thirds. Okay, so I've drawn my number line. I've labeled my whole numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I've broken each whole into 3 parts. So from here to number 2, so from the whole number 1 to the whole number 2, I have 1, 2, 3 parts. So that means my denominator is going to be 3, and I partitioned it into thirds. So here's 1, 2, 3. That's another one. Then we have 1, 2, 3 here, all the way going to our fourths. Now we're ready to label all of the fractions. So think, what did I partition my whole numbers into? And what's my denominator going to be? Right, it's going to be 3 because here I have 1, 2, 3 parts. Between 2 and 3, I have 1, 2, 3 parts. Between 3 and 4, I have 3 parts. So I know that my denominator is going to be 3. Now we have to pause because this is one whole. So how many thirds do I need to equal one whole? 3. So our fraction for one whole is going to be 3. Is going to be 3 thirds. So I'm going to go ahead and label that as 3 thirds. Now we're ready to continue to count by 1/3. So we've got 3 thirds, then we have 4 thirds, now we have 5 thirds, then we have 6 thirds, then we have 7 thirds, 8 thirds, 9 thirds, 10 thirds, 11 thirds, and then I got my 4 wholes here, 12 thirds. So now what I want you to do is take a look at this number line. It has a whole number of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Endpoint here is 1. Endpoint over here is 4. And then it has these fractions: 2 halves, 5 halves, 7 halves, 8 halves. I want you on your paper to see if you can place all of these fractions on your number line. So go ahead and pause the video here and see if you can put 2 halves, 5 halves, 7 halves, and 8 halves on the number line where they belong. All right, so let's start with the denominator. Our denominator is 2, so that means from each whole number, so from this whole number to this whole number, I need to partition or break it into two pieces because our denominator is 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do that first. And I know that they're all the same because the denominator is 2 and it does not change. So each one of these whole numbers need to be broken into 2 parts to match our denominator. Then I can look, okay, 2 halves. I know that 2 halves, because our denominator is 2, is the same as 1 whole. So I'm going to go ahead and label 1 whole as 2 halves. Now, I'm not really sure where 5 halves goes, so I'm just going to continue to count. So I'm going to count by 1/2 each time. So if I have 2 halves here, I'm going to have 3 halves here. And then I'm going to keep counting by 1/2. So here's 4 halves here. And then 5 halves here. So now that's a 2. So now I have found where 5 halves goes. So now that I know where 5 halves goes, I can continue on to the next one. 7 halves. I'm not sure. I'm just going to keep counting by 1/2. So 3 wholes is 6 halves. So now I have 7 halves. And I've put, that's an 8. Let me fix that. Now I've put 7 halves on my number line, and the last one is 8 halves, and I have one more tick mark, so I'm going to go ahead and label it as 8 halves. Okay, so now let's take a look at the exit ticket. So on the exit ticket, it says locate and label the following fractions on the number line. So you're going to use 8/4, 6/4, and 12/4, and you're going to match them to where they belong on our number line and in between what holes. So down here, it gives you the options for all of the letters on the number line. You only have to pick one letter for each. So which one of these letters matches 8/4? Which one of these letters matches 6/4? And which one of these letters matches 12/4? You only need to pick one for each one. Then it says Katie brought 2 1-gallon bottles of juice for a party. Her guests drank 6/4 gallons of juice. What fraction of a gallon of juice is left? Draw a number line to help you and then type your answer. So make sure when you're answering this, you go ahead and you draw your number line and figure out which whole numbers are your starting points and your end points. And then what is the denominator and what are you going to break your number line into? What are you going to partition it into? How many parts for each whole? All right, third graders, hope you have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow.